Coming up on this week's episode of CEO Yourself.
One of my big mantras in life is don't ask, don't get, which I know is quite a common one, but I really feel like people often have the fear to ask. And ultimately, if you don't ask, you just are in the same position. You know, the worst that can happen is someone says no and then you're just where you were before. And I really feel like you have to go after things, but with that courage and with that belief, and I guess illustrating why you're the right person for that role. So for example,
India Semi is a creator at the India Edit. She is co-founder of The Mood Limited. And today on CEO Yourself, we deep dive her CEO superpower, evolving with courage. India, welcome to CEO Yourself.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's such an honour to have you. Abby and I are very good like that to each other. We're always connecting each
I
other.
love it. I always admire that about the two of you.
Thank God we met, because we have become obviously friends, but we've kind of had this interesting journey through the industry and different places you've been and different places I've been. And It's been so wonderful for me to watch the evolution of your career and to watch you succeed in so many ways. I thought your CEO superpower was going to be consistency.
Oh, interesting. I literally think I'm the least consistent person in the world.
No, I that was what I had chosen for you.
Love that.
Because you have so consistently shown up. You always go above and beyond, but you're very consistent in your approach to all things, not just your Instagram feed, but the way you work, the way you communicate.
That's so kind.
The way you style your looks. I feel like you don't get pushed and pulled into trends. You are very true and consistent to your style.
Well, I am very, very honoured that you think that of me. I definitely don't think that of myself. I feel like I'm chaotic and, you know, some days I'll post 3 times on Instagram and the next it'll be not for 5 days. But I very much appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, good. But what is your CEO superpower?
So my CEO superpower that kept kind of coming up for me was courage, and really kind of evolving with courage. So I think having the courage to follow your gut, move first, do things that maybe other people haven't done before. And I think that's shown up for me in lots of areas of my life and quite consistently. And so that's what we're going with today.
Amazing. And the reason I mentioned it early, because I think it's such a good place to start with your CEO superpower, to then deep dive into your career, the evolution of your career, and how you've used evolving with courage.
Absolutely, like the anchor.
Exactly,
throughout.
To get to where you are today. So talk us through top line, how you did get to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I have always loved working. Like, as soon as, I think in the UK you can legally start working at 16, and I was straight into finding a job. I never wanted to work like in a bar or pub. I wanted to be like surrounded by business and sales, and I guess I have always been motivated by money, but it just really excited me, the world of business and entrepreneurship. So I went straight into working in a clothes store and kind of worked my way up there. And then at university, I studied economics, not because I was fascinated by the economy at all. It was more that felt aligned with business. And as I said, that was always kind of an interest of mine. And at school here, we have this thing called Young Enterprise, where you can think about the age of 16, you start a business and run it with your peers at school and enter like national competitions. And that was something I loved doing. So I think I always had, I guess, a bit of natural leadership in me, if I can say that. And so that was always exciting. And then at university, you know, the degree was like a means to an end. It wasn't something that hugely excited me. But again, any opportunities to start businesses or get involved in that world, I went for. And then I secured a job at Accenture, which is like a big management consultancy business. I'd had a blog when I was at university, and it had kind of fallen by the wayside when I met my now husband, because it was just too many things to do. And I obviously had to get my degree as well. But I'd always loved curating things, sharing information, taking photos, finding restaurants and places to visit. And I'd noticed there was this company called Reward Style at the time. And they were very much pioneering in the influencer marketing space, allowing influencers to monetize their content in ways that hadn't been done before. And I kind of had in the back of my head, like, oh, one day I'd love to work there. And I followed the founder quite closely, a woman called Amber Vensbox. And she's super impressive, from Texas, very much the face of the business. I didn't even know that Reward Style had an office in London at the time, because I was being quite passive with my career, I guess I just had this job and I was enjoying it. Within a week, I literally found a job there, interviewed, got the job, quit Accenture, and I was the first person of those 80 to leave. And everyone was like, don't you think you should just stick it out? And, you know, what are you doing? And I was just like, guys, it's not for me. Like I've always had this feeling that if there's no one more senior than you that you want to be, then it's not the right job for you. And so I guess that was my first instance of courage and really following my gut and having the courage to, it wasn't like a big pay rise or anything. I guess it was, in a sense, a bet on the early stages of influencer marketing. And yeah, I went for it. I don't think I even knew what job I was going to be doing. And that company evolved to be Like to Know It, LTK now. And I was there for 6 years. Absolutely loved it. Worked with amazing people and obviously learned so much and kind of moved my way up the business from being an account manager up to head of sales in the UK. And yeah, I had an amazing time there. But on the side, I'd restarted my own Instagram. So in that role, I was working on the brand side. So everyone's like, oh, you must have like learned how to be an influencer. And that wasn't really the case because I was helping brands navigate the influencer space and work with them on that influencer strategy. But of course, I learned things along the way. But I was securing influencer marketing spend from big brands and then choosing who to spend that budget on in terms of the influencers. And I was like, I can do this. Like, we're paying all these people good money. And I was like, they're doing more what I want to be doing. And I feel like I can do it. And I have, I guess, to an extent in the past. But because I had a full-time job, it was difficult to juggle everything. But then in 2020, we all know what happened, but everyone were on their phones more. I had more time. And that's kind of when my Instagram grew and I decided to take it more seriously.
Talk to me about having courage to leave LTK, because obviously it is an internationally recognized, extraordinary business where I watched you climb the ranks and become so successful within the company. It must have required huge courage to take the leap. Was it quite a quick decision or did you think about it for some time?
So I love that you've asked me this question because it definitely wasn't an easy decision. It was a decision that I felt in my gut, but I kept pushing it away. And that actually had physical impact. So I basically moved into this head of role at the beginning of 2022. And I'd loved my role before. It was very client facing and I loved being out there speaking to clients. And I think my niche was basically building existing business and growing that kind of recurring income. But
because we worked together on that side as well
did.
With the previous company that I was with, and you were so relatable and it was so enjoyable to work with you from that side.
Thank you.
And that felt very much like the right role for you.
Yeah, I loved it. I really loved it. And then I moved into this more managerial role, which I think is very typical when people become more senior. You stop doing the job that you're originally hired for and you start doing more of a people management role. And I didn't love that. And I was doing more new business, which was honestly not something I'd really learned huge amounts about because it hadn't been what I've been working in the 5 years previous. And suddenly I was managing a team of 10 people and not speaking to clients so much. And I just, at the same time, my own business was growing more successful. And I was so torn because I had this feeling of, okay, you've got this good job, you've got a solid income, you want to get a mortgage and do all these things. But at the same time, I was also being pulled in the direction of your own business is growing and it could be something and it's always what you've wanted to do. So you should go for it. And I kept thinking, okay, I was getting married the year after. So I got married spring last year and I was like, okay, after the wedding, I'll quit. Like I kept putting timelines on it. And I think I'd been saying to friends, I think I want to leave at some point. At some point, I want to just focus on the India edit. And I don't think anyone really thought I would actually do it. And I'm a big believer in meditation and I kept meditating and, doing self-development things. And this feeling and thought that kept coming up was, I want to quit, I want to quit, I want to quit. And I kept just pushing it down and pushing it down. And it got to the point where I would literally feel so kind of empty, I guess. And I would just sit on the sofa and not really have the energy to like get up and get dressed. And I guess like very mild depression, I would say. And one day I went to a friend's wedding. The next day we were all kind of having a debrief and having coffee, and one girl there who I really admire, who's super successful, she was like, so when are you going to quit? And I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do it like in March, so I've quit before the wedding. And she was like, you always say that and you're never going to do it. And the next morning I woke up and I just had to quit that day. I was like, today's the day, it's happening. And it was the 8th of August, which is 8/8, which is apparently a very auspicious day. I texted my sister and I was like, I'm going to quit today. And she was like, today is the portal of the Lion's Gate. I was like, are you okay? Like, what are you talking about? And it's basically like a gateway to, I guess, another life or another path.
Change and evolution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I texted my husband, who'd gone to work already, because I was probably having a lion, because, you know, I didn't have that energy in me. And I was like, babe, I'm going to quit today. And he was like, let's talk about it at dinner. And by about 11:30, I texted him and I was like, I've done it. And so I ended up quitting. This is really weird. I quit at 11:11 on 8/8/22.
Wow.
So I was like, that's got to mean something.
Let's talk about that for the listener out there, because I've just been through a similar journey. And I think when you don't listen to the first kind of voice inside that's telling you this isn't right, you're no longer moving in the right direction, it does play out physically.
Totally. And I know that you felt that way, haven't you?
Let's talk to the listener out there who is currently struggling to get out of bed, feeling that kind of mild sense of depression. You have to do it. You have to listen to your gut. You have to act on it. And it is so difficult to find that courage and to block out that inner noise or that inner voice that perhaps,
and the external voices.
Exactly what I was going to say, like that, the people around you who perhaps we even manufacture this pressure, but the stable income, the safety,
absolutely,
the expectation, the ego.
For sure, the ego.
Your inner voice knows that you're true calling, and whilst it's scary, you must listen to it.
Definitely. And I think, you know, you've had this as well, where the more you push it down, the more like physical it becomes.
And it's quite scary where it can get to, actually, physically and mentally.
Yeah. And you lose yourself in the process, I guess, too. And
how good does it feel when you rip off the Band-Aid?
So good. You know, the day I quit, I actually felt really sad. I think it was like a relief, but I also did, to an extent, I guess, feel like I was letting some people down, like my manager who'd invested so much in me and my team, and I don't know, maybe even like parents who have expectations and have given me a great path to get to where I was. But then I definitely felt such a sense of relief in the weeks and months that followed.
It's very emotional. It is, for me, it's felt like a breakup of
Totally.
sense.
Yeah.
And the emotion that I feel with my direct team, like we've all had really emotional moments together in hearing the news, because you spend more time with them than you do with anyone else.
Exactly.
And you form these beautiful bonds
100%.
and you feel like you're letting them down or walking away from them.
Totally. And I can't remember who said this to me, and maybe it's just a general saying, but leaving a party on a high, like that is really the best time to go, isn't it?
It really is.
And I would say that's what we both have done, but it's the least expected time to leave.
I hope you're loving this week's episode. To find more inspirational resources and to shop our new product range, visit ceoyourself.com. Let's now move on to a more positive note, because obviously that's the difficult departure. Yeah. Watching your career evolution from afar, what has been beautiful is, and I think this is in line with evolving with courage, is that you have this, it's perceived, it's my perspective, but you have this ability to kind of imagine a greater future for yourself and to make it happen.
That's very kind. I feel like I am a positive person. I don't think I always have been, but I think I, you know, as you do, like invest lots in myself and try to be very optimistic. And given that I've had, you know, a good amount of career history, I feel like what's the worst that can happen? You know, like I can get another job, like a more traditional job if I need to. And it's been so nice to be able to dip my toe into lots of different things and kind of see where it takes me. Like I feel like I'm still in the like very early stages, because I got married in May last year, that almost felt like my full-time job when I quit. And then afterwards, I almost felt this kind of creative drought because I'd given so much to that. And now I feel like I've got a new year. I've got an assistant in my team now. And I feel like now I'm almost only getting into the groove like a year or so on.
It's definitely not looking that way from the outside. But let's talk to that listener who is either at the precipice of jumping into the fear and into the unknown, or the person who's just done it. Let's talk about the practical side of it. You know, there are realities of life.
Yes.
What is your advice to me or the person out there who's taking the plunge in how to turn their dreams into reality and use courage to jump into, you know, their dream role? How did you practically pursue making your dreams a reality?
So one of my big mantras in life is don't ask, don't get, which I know is quite a common one, but I really feel like people often have the fear to ask. And ultimately, if you don't ask, you just are in the same position. You know, the worst that can happen is someone says no, and then you're just where you were before. And I really feel like you have to go after things, but with that courage and with that belief, and I guess illustrating why you're the right person for that role. So for example, I've just created like a travel one pager because I was like, wait, I actually travel a good amount and I photograph hotels, etc. Like that's a big asset to them. So why don't I use that to my benefit? So I think looking at your skill set, working out where you can add value to people, where it can be transactional and, you know, win-win for both of you, and saying yes to things. I was very open to different opportunities, whether that was doing more photography work or writing, or I can't think of things like planning events, etc. And I think just being open to different opportunities and not having a really sort of stringent path ahead, if you don't know exactly what you want to be doing and where your skills could take you, I think that being open, being grateful, and networking are three things that I definitely do. I think building relationships.
You've always shown up for me and for so many people around me. And I think because of that, people then want to give back to you. You're always giving first.
That's really sweet. And I've never thought of it like that. But I think building relationships, you really never know where they would take you. Like there's this amazing interior designer and we were just Instagram friends. And she reached out to me last year when I said I was going freelance. And she was like, I'd love to talk to you about social media. And I was like, look, I'm really happy to give you ideas, but I don't want to manage someone else's social media. I already can't do my own. So we then came up with ideas of how we could work together, perhaps with me in a photographer capacity. And I've actually ended up having the best time working with her. Like it's maybe only been probably about 10 days of the last year, but I love the world of interiors. It's something that I would love to know more about, but I don't necessarily want to work in. But I've had the best time with her, like shooting behind the scenes, shooting her projects on film.
She's so talented.
She's so talented.
Shout out to Katie. What's her Instagram handle?
Katie Harbison.
You guys should follow her. She's absolutely amazing. And she's doing a few of my friends' homes. Yes. And she is just wildly talented. Is actually. And a joy to follow.
I think that the two homes that I photographed are your friends.
Yeah, two of my closest friends.
Who have great taste, clearly. Yeah. But that's just been so rewarding, and being on a construction site is not somewhere I thought I would be, but I've had the best time. So I think just being open, having conversations with people and being honest, like the worst work that I've done in the last year is where I've committed to something that I haven't felt is right in my gut. And those are always the projects that drag. They're the clunkiest and most difficult. And I think you quickly learn to try to go where things feel aligned, basically.
So let's talk about what your service offering is, because you are not just the most perfectly curated and aesthetically pleasing Instagram feed of all time at the India Edit, but you've recently launched a newsletter. You have co-founded a business, The Mood Limited.
Yes, exactly.
Talk to me about what your brand represents and all the strings in your bow and where you want to take it.
Great question. So I would say all of them kind of fall under the umbrella of curation. And I've always been really good at processing information quickly and kind of churning out what I feel are the best bits. And I think all of the avenues that I've been pulled down are going down that path. even with photography, you know, it's like seeing things and capturing the best moments. So that's the umbrella that I think everything I do really falls into. So the Instagram, that's been something I've been working on for some time. And I, back in the day, had a blog, and I feel like lots of people that had blogs 10, 12 years ago are kind of going down the newsletter route because it's really fun to write. It feels really nostalgic, and it's really nice to have a place to share longer form content in a world where everyone's got a short attention span and we're just, you know, videos at 15 seconds, etc. So that's been a really nice sort of evolution of the Indie edit. I literally came up with the idea probably just before Christmas, and I think it was literally on Boxing Day. I was watching a film with my family and I was on my computer and my husband was cross with me because I was double screening. And then afterwards he was like, what were you doing? And I was like, I built my whole newsletter brand. And he was like, oh, okay, that's fair enough then. And then, you know, a week later I'd launched it. So I think I'm quite good at moving quickly with things. So the newsletter, I'm loving just sharing recommendations in longer form, whether that's hotels or restaurants, home, etc. Would love to do more about self-development. I've done one on well-being. So just all of my interests, I'm loving sharing that. And then
talk to me about the Mood Limited.
So this is a very exciting one. In the summer last year, I kind of felt like I wanted to be doing something that was not just about me. That's a challenge with having an Instagram profile. I feel like it's all very you-centric, and I wanted something that would live outside of just me. And at the time, my friend Layla, who's an amazing event producer, she came to me with this idea, and I was like, oh my God, I would love to do that with you. So The Mood is a contemporary event styling consultancy. So what we offer is one-to-one consultations with anyone planning an event, whether that's a wedding, a party, a baby shower, etc. And we have a call, and then we curate a mood board for your event based on the discussion. And then we can also recommend vendors to help you execute it. So it's kind of like a wedding planning service, I guess, or a party planning service, but you are still doing the execution, and we are really offering our ideas and curation from a place of years of knowledge, essentially.
The events that you curate are so stunning.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's true. The way you can turn, I think you did an event recently with your family at the Pelican, which is a pub in Notting Hill, for those listening. And the way you transformed that space, I was like, I need to have an event there. It looks so beautiful.
That's so kind. But yeah, it's something I really love. And Layla has the most insane network of vendors in the industry, and it's been so rewarding. We haven't officially launched yet. Hopefully we will have by the time the podcast comes out. But it's been so rewarding speaking to like a bride and giving her ideas and knowing that that is going to come to fruition on her wedding day. And I think, you know, as you know, from getting married recently too, it's pretty overwhelming. So it's amazing to now kind of be out of it myself and not have that emotional attachment.
You can enjoy it more.
Totally. And yeah, it's just so fun to be able to help people with something that is challenging. And, you know, people have busy lives, and a wedding is like a full-time job. So to be able to give them some guidance and elevate their event is something we're really excited about.
Let's go back to your point about you don't ask, you don't get.
Mm-hmm.
You are a successful Instagram influencer, let's be honest, and you work with most extraordinary brands and elevated brands, whether it's luxury travel, luxury beauty, luxury lifestyle, luxury fashion. How does the aspiring Instagram influencer out there turn it into a business? Because that's fundamentally what you've done.
So yeah, going back to the don't ask, don't get, I think that can come down to anything from reaching out to a brand and talking about why you'd be a great fit, to speaking to an agent and building up that relationship. Like my agents, I've been with them for a couple of years. That didn't just happen overnight. Back in 2020, I think I spoke to them and didn't sign with them for 2 or so years later. And I think people don't know that things don't just happen overnight like it looks like it does. But there's a brand that I'm about to work with that I've maybe been gifted by many times in creating content free of charge because I love them and I align with them, but they've never paid me until now. And I think you have to do 90% of the work that all influencers do is unpaid, but you do that because it then leads to the other 10%. And so I think, as you kind of mentioned at the beginning, it's that consistency. It's curating your aesthetic and your brand, and you can totally experiment within that. But I guess with my content, whether it's something more like talking to camera or it's more elevated and editorial, I would say that the aesthetic is pretty consistent throughout, all the style and the lens in which I create it. So I think having some level of consistency, whether that's how it looks or how you communicate it or the consistency in which you share it. Like maybe I'm not consistent with the volume, but I'm consistent in other things. So I think you have to have some element of consistency and you have to be adding value. I don't think that you have to have a super specific niche, such as like, I'm just going to share skincare. Like I for sure share across such a variety of verticals, but I would say that I'm consistent in terms of the way that I share it. And that's my niche. It's like my lens is my niche. So I think working out where you can add value, whether that's helping people save time or educating them on where they can find the best tank top or the best luxury items or the best hotels, there has to be something that you are giving away, and you have to be happy to give that away for free ultimately.
That's exactly it. I think you are always thinking about the audience. Like as a follower, I feel as if you're actually adding value to my life, whether it's a guide to Miami or the best latest restaurant or skincare that really works. You're actually thinking about how to add value to me as your audience. You're not just pimping out products.
I hope not. And I try to stay really true to my brand, and I say no to lots of things, as I'm sure everyone does, but I do say no to a lot because I don't want to devalue my brand and break that trust that I built with my audience. And at the moment, my newsletters, they take hours. They probably take like 10 hours a week. And I'm doing that because I love it. And it's building another channel and place that I can speak to my audience, and it allows them to get to know me better, which I feel is sometimes lacking from my Instagram. Maybe it's too much at arm's length. And so I'm willing to invest in the newsletter. Perhaps one day I can monetize it. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying that it's somewhere that I can show more of my personality and give more away. But at the same time, there's obviously value for me in that it is building my brand.
That is another consistent theme, is that you're giving, and then obviously naturally it gives back.
Oh,
whether it's a friend or a contact or a brand.
Yes, totally.
Now tell me, what's next for you?
So I'm absolutely loving all of the different pies, I guess, that I've got my fingers in. So The Mood is a really exciting project that I would love to be able to dedicate more time to. I think at the moment we're still kind of finalizing our website, etc. We've got our branding, which we love, and just really excited to get that out there in the world. And it's one of those things that when we've had consultations, it hasn't felt really easy, but I'm like, oh, I can do this. And that's a really nice feeling. And I think that's when you know that you're doing something that's right for you, because it doesn't feel hard. And I remember, I think it was Emma Hero said it. She was like, you shouldn't be paid for the time it takes you to do things, because if you've honed your craft and you can do something in 5 minutes that it takes someone else 5 hours to do, you shouldn't get paid just for the 5 minutes, you know? And so I think I'm trying to go with things that feel good, whether that's being behind the lens more, which I'm loving. So doing some more fashion photography, as I mentioned, interiors. I would love to obviously try and keep up my newsletter on a weekly basis. And as I mentioned, I feel like I'm still at the beginning of these things.
Now, tell me, what is your legacy piece of advice? How would you want to be remembered?
I think the best compliment that anyone ever gives me is that I have good energy. And I think I just want to make other people feel good, feel positive, and to see opportunity. Like I love to chat to people about how they can improve their current career or life situations. And I think I would just love to be known for that, to bring good vibes, good energy.
Amazing. And what would your piece of advice be?
I think it's got to be don't ask, don't get. I just always go back to it. And it's almost like a joke in my family, but I call it DADG. And I'm just like, guys, DADG.
You know why I like that? Because there is kind of a negative perception around asking for anything.
Yes.
So how does one listening overcome that perception?
I think it's about asking in the right way. And I think it's about knowing how the person that you're asking can also gain value from whatever it is you're asking for.
Mutually beneficial.
Exactly. And yeah, as I said, like asking for it in a nice way without ego, without expectation. And I think it has kind of a grabby, like masculine, spoilt energy about it. But I think that you can go about it in a nice way. And, you know, if you don't ask, you'll never know.
And I think thinking about what you can give, not just what you can take.
Exactly. And it's like in job interviews when people just talk about why that job would be beneficial for them. It's like they should be focusing on why the job is beneficial for the company, or like why they're beneficial for the company.
Such good advice.
And I think that comes back to don't ask, don't get as well.
So there's so much on the cards for you. There's so much happening. I cannot wait to continue to watch. Where can people find you?
So my Instagram is the India Edit, and I also have Substack under the same name. My newsletter is called Edited, but it's just the indiaedit.substack.com. So I would love for you guys to sign up to my newsletter there. And The Mood is at The Mood Ltd, so at The Mood Limited.
Thank you so much for your time, India. I know you'll inspire so many creatives out there, and I do want to encourage those listening that if you have that feeling, if you have that sense that you're not following the right pursuit, take the leap, believe in yourself. And I hope, like you, so many will be encouraged to kind of turn their dreams into reality and use their imagination to create a new reality.
Thank you. It's been such a joy to speak to you as always. And as you said, I really hope that we've inspired people to use their courage to make positive change.
It would mean the world to me if you would share today's episode with someone you feel would enjoy it. And don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and leave a comment.